Man, this front office just keeps on cooking. John Schneider strikes again, or maybe this one is due credit to the new ownership group. Plus, say it with me, we got to talk about the running backs and injuries, but specifically just I have promised you a long time ago that we were going to keep talking running backs on every single episode of Seahawks Digest. What's going on, by the way? Christian Pedersen back with another episode of the show where I have found one person who is weirdly uncomfortable with the pick behind me and just confused by it. Isn't Marshawn a legend? Don't we like him? Unsure about what that whole interaction was. If you want to like, subscribe, comment, share, follow, all those other things, or if the photo behind me bothers you, you can comment about which one you would like instead. On this episode, like I said, we got to talk about Leonard Williams getting that bag, and just in general, a lot of contract extensions being figured out, finalized, and taken out of the consciousness. Sorry about that for YouTube show. Sometimes I'm going to hit the mic with my wildly unnecessary hand gestures. But we also, again, got to talk about some depth chart and issues that are going to hopefully be solved, but are moving maybe a little bit for me from back of mind to front of mind. First one, though, 3 years, $90 million for Leonard Williams. Initial reaction, I'm 70-30 in favor of this. I like the fact that anytime you can get a guy who's a piece, like a key, a Witherspoon, a Leonard Williams, if you got a guy like this who's, they're like, even if they're a professional who's saying, hey, all the right things, yada, 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 why not get the contract negotiations and discussions out of the way so there's not any room to question whether or not, could he have gone a little harder on that third down? Could he have taken that extra hit? Could he have gone out to that game? Put that all to sleep. For Leonard Williams, the contract-specific details are still coming out. This was figured out a little bit before, like 20 minutes before me recording this. It's going to be $56 million guaranteed, which ties him with Vita Vea for the fifth highest average annual salary. So it's another part of me. Maybe as I'm kind of still digesting this, maybe I'll move it up to 80-20 in favor of it. The only thing that I am just unsure about with any of this is given that bread to guys in their 30s. And I understand the irony of I am a man in my mid-30s and I'm complaining about, it's a 32-year-old out there. We shouldn't trust him to take all these hits. So I'm not saying that it's like there's any bad or any expectations that he's not going to live up to this, but just nonetheless, it is always in my mind in a salary-capped sport where there will always, no matter how many of these contracts we can get figured out off the books and off our mind, there will always be somebody else popping up. Next, it's going to be Darnold. Then it's going to be this. Then it's going to be that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But nonetheless, congratulations, Leonard Williams. If you need somebody to join in your entourage and make mid-tier YouTube videos, I'm your boy. Hit me up. Next article that I saw, we got to talk about, like I said, injuries and running back concerns. First one being Trayvon Diggs. We will talk about. He was not necessarily included in the Titans game for any reason other than he just didn't get here quick enough to really figure out the defense, and so is now this week, according to reports, is getting good reps with the ones. He is out there getting ready for us to take on the Chiefs. And I think that, especially with Josh Jobe, not as they address here, Josh Jobe, not participating and dressing in those warm-ups, nothing injury-wise to report there, but it's going to further put all eyes on Diggs, and I will be curious what the approach is for the Chiefs in terms of who's getting what level of reps, and if we want to walk away from all of this being like, oh, heck yeah, Diggs was so solid, X, Y, and Z, shut all these guys down, but then you look at it, it's like, that's the third, so maybe not get overly optimistic off of this, but if he can go a whole preseason game without getting egregiously beat, no home run balls, don't trip over your own feet, just, do the basics, then I will consider it nothing but a win. On the opposite end of nothing but a win, we got a continued absence from Torrey Horton And Emmanuel Wilson is looking like he's not going to play at all in the preseason based off of the reports that are coming out of camp. Right now, it seems like he is just not healthy, just not ready, just not whatever it is. Couple of guys out in the most recent practice of precautions. Seems that on the opposite direction of that, Nick Eamon-Worry is taking steps in the right direction to get healthy, which, again, if Nick Eamon-Worry can come back, and we've got Witherspoon, and we've got Leonard Williams, and I know that those are all three guys at different positions, but if we've got dudes at every level of the defense, we don't need Diggs to come in here and be a dude. We just need him to not absolutely suck. Like, we just need to not have one super exposed part. But Torrey Horton and Emmanuel Wilson, both concerning for different reasons. Horton, it's the undisclosed nature of this, and we've talked about this now a couple of different times, but it's looking like he's for sure not gonna play against the Chiefs, or not even necessarily suit up, and that makes me, you gotta be worried at this point, right? Either he is off dealing with something of a personal nature, in which case I have no interest in pushing or asking, and like, prayers up, dude. Hope things get figured out. But if this is he's tweaked an injury and just can't quite figure out the right diagnosis or how to get healthy or whatever, that's another really solid loss for an offense that could definitely use depth at the wide receiver position, especially with Jake Bobo going out. The Emmanuel Wilson one is interesting also to me, just given I'm probably reductionist to keep saying it every single position. We need the depth, we need the depth, we need the depth. But at the running back position super specifically, we don't have an incumbent. Yes, George Holani was on the team last year, but to be like, oh, this was the narrative wasn't that this is George's RB1 and then everybody else is just battling out for the rest of the reps. The narrative that I have so far understood it to be is that this is Sharbs' running back job. He's coming back in a couple of weeks, and that it's everybody else's to kind of figure out who's going to be temporary RB1, who's going to be this, who's going to be that. And part of that game plan seemed to be splitting it up so that Emmanuel Wilson could take some. But if he is not able to participate in really ostensibly any of training camp preseason activities, I don't want to be cold-hearted, but at what point do you cut bait and run and just be like, dude, appreciate you trying, appreciate you working out with us. It's just not happening. They talk about Jacardia Wright getting some reps. I would assume that if we are unable to have Emmanuel Wilson healthy and available by the start of the season, that third running back becomes less of an in-game option and more of a just-in-case type of option, and that we will see what would have been Emmanuel Wilson's workload get split between Jadarian Price and George Holani. But that is just my guess, because some of this is being kept kind of tight behind closed doors. So a lot to think about, because even though it might only be that Emmanuel Wilson was going to take 7 carries, or that Torrey Horton was only going to get 5 targets or 3 targets, like, these might be individually on the fantasy spreadsheet small numbers. I feel like they are still very impactful numbers, because it helps keep everybody else honest on all of our other actual primary targets. And if there's one less quality receiver out there, that's one more DB that can be transferred over to shut down Sheed and JSN. If there's one less quality running back in the room, that's easier for defenses to figure out what we're going to be doing with the other two. So just my thoughts. Curious to hear yours. Let me know what you think. Like, subscribe, comment, share, follow. I don't even know what I was saying there. Until next time.